What up, everybody? Welcome to a live stream here at Electrical Code Academy. My name's Paul Abernathy, and welcome to a Saturday morning live stream. So we're recording episodes today, and I figured what better way to do it than go with a live. And in this live, we're going to be looking at a specific topic today. We're going to be talking about branch circuits for garages and, of course, outdoors around garages. So that's kind of the lesson that we're going to be going over today. Of course, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in whatever platform you're watching on. And hopefully we will see those questions and be able to share them on the screen and answer those questions for you in today's episode. But that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's kind of, before I get started, I do want to remind everybody that we have added a bunch of new products to our website, our supplements, a new line of coffee, which is a premium Colombian coffee, if you're into that thing. And of course, our courses and our training and all that stuff's available over on fasttracksystem.com. All right, so let's go on and get into what we're going to be talking about today, kind of looking at a lesson. Now, this is a lesson that comes out of our residential program, okay? So keep that in mind as we're kind of today kind of focusing on residential a little bit more. So if you have our Fast Tracks system for exam prep, it's not going to be like this because this is our residential. Okay, so for those that want to deep dive into learning about residential wiring, then we have a great residential program that'll get you into the weeds and things like that, which are great for transition, folks, that type of thing. Okay, so let's get on over to it here. So this is what we're looking at today. Let's see what we've got here. Got Anthony. Anthony, thanks for joining. Appreciate it. And we got Red Dog. Okay, thanks for joining me, sir, this morning. Let me know where you're from, where you're at, and I'm more than happy to share it on the screen. In fact, it even will cover my face for a brief moment. So if that's your goal, cover me up, then here you go. I'll share it. All right, so let's go on and get into today's topic. So what I'm going to do real quick, though, is try to see if I can't get a little bit easier to see, and we'll see how this works. So what we're going to talk about in today, we're going to, after we study this unit, we're going to be looking at the basic lighting when it comes to a residential garage, answer some questions about what you can and what you can't put on in a garage branch circuit. We're going to be talking about the receptacles and the circuits in the garage. And I might even touch on the question everybody asks about EV and their application when you're installing an EV charger, for example, in a garage, becoming extremely popular. What's up? Dan from Chicago, Dan Martins. Thanks for joining me, Dan, this morning. Let's see. So what I didn't do is I didn't send an announcement about this. So again, let me know in the chat or let me know in post something if you're like ticked off that I didn't give a pre-warning about it. Okay, so that'll let me know whether I really should give people a warning about these lives. But as I told you, I'll be doing a lot more of these as I move into the first of the year. So again, it's only fair that I probably let people know a little bit more about when I go live. So I get it. I apologize. Short notice. Okay. Again, we're messing with new software, new studio. So some of the stuff looks the same, but there's some slight differences here in what we're doing. Okay, so that's kind of what we're going to look at. We're also going to cover what about the garage door, electric garage door, and that receptacle, and those type of things. We're going to cover all those type of things. And Anthony is already posting code references 210.52G. We're obviously in the garage, so those code references are very germane. Now, what we're not going to do in today's episode is we're not going to go away to the code book. And the reason we're doing this is because I want, hopefully you have a code book and you can go look at the references. So we're going to try to not pull away from that. And to be honest with you, even if we do, we'll see how that looks and how we want to do that. All right, maybe we do, maybe we don't. I don't know how that'll look on the screen. So we'll see how that, we'll play that by ear, see how that looks. All right, so the first thing we want to do is, let's see, Before we do that, remember I am answering questions. So here, I recently got my commercial inspector and plans examiner here in Florida, Paul. I think the next step for me is CMECP. Anthony, we welcome you to the program. We'd love to see you go through it. I guarantee you it will enhance your knowledge and you will become part of an elite group because, again, not everybody makes it through. Really ask Ron, who everybody knows. Ron has been in our programs for years. Those that came to the Wednesday night sessions, he's just on the final stage. He just submitted his essay. So he is on the cusp. He has made it past all the steps. He's going to be, hopefully, we are with a little bit of a delay, Ron, if you're watching. We still have to send that out to the CMECPs for review, but I would expect the review to come back in the next week. And you'll find the results of whether or not you're part of our exclusive club of CMECPs. All right? But thanks for bringing that up, Anthony. Certainly. Okay. So what we're going to be talking about is the lighting branch circuit. So in our circuit, from our panel, here's what we're doing. So if you read the screen, here's what we're doing. It may be hard to see the screen, and I will scroll in and out so that kind of makes it easier for everybody. I'll go in and out and from time to time. So if I can adjust things to make it easier, we'll do it on the fly. So here's what we're looking at. We have circuit B14. It's a 15 amp branch circuit that originates in panel board B. It's in the laundry room. And that circuit, that home run is going out to where? It says this branch circuit is brought to a 2-gang switch box next to the service door on the front wall of the garage. So, you're in your garage and you're getting ready to go into the house and you've got this 2-gang switch right by the door. That's the front wall of the garage. Okay. All right. That's where it's at. And it says from this point, the circuit is carried to the lighting outlets and switch locations. So that's what B14 is all about. Okay. So let's go look and see what we got. So let's look at this drawing. I'm going to come back a little bit so we can kind of take it in full breath here. So here's what we've got. So the garage cable layout, figure 16-1, this is what we've got right here. As you can see here is B14 coming in, home run, hitting this 2-gang box right here. And in this 2-gang box, this circuit is supplying this light here. Okay, but it's also going from a 3-way over to a 4-way. And this little signature right here to let you know that that is a 3-wire cable with ground. And then from here, coming down to the front of the garage where the whole opening is. And right there's another 3-way. So that's a 4-wire, a 14-3 with ground. And that's what those hashes are. It tells you it's a 14-3. So this garage, so what lighting is it controlling? All right, well, it looks like it's a single pole right here on this circuit. It's controlling this luminaire right here, right outside the door. And it also looks like, and there's another entryway right here. And it looks like it's controlling from here is controlling these 3 lights right here. Okay, these 3 luminaires. So that is on B14. Now, the other circuit that we have in this layout is this B23 right here. So if you can't see it, I'll zoom in. Right here. B23. So what is this B23? The hell is this all about? All right. So the B23 is the circuit that is required, okay, because we do have a garage. It's a circuit that's required by what? Well, we got to go to 210.11. Now let's see if this will allow me. I said I wasn't going to share, but we'll go on and share it and see what we got as far as the screen. Okay, let's see here. It doesn't look like it's sharing very well, so we'll zoom out here. So here we're in the 2023 edition of the NEC, by the way. So here's 210.11, the branch circuits that are required, right? And let's go down here. And so we know a minimum of 2 small appliances are required. Laundry is required. Bathroom circuits required. But since we do have a garage in this house, okay, we do have a garage, so we have to have a garage branch circuit. It's required. So we have 210.11 and it's C4. And it says, in addition to the number of branch circuits required by other parts of this section, and what that really means is the ones that are required, the 2 small appliance, the laundry, and the bathroom. So in addition to those, it says you have to have at least one 120 volt, 20 amp branch circuit shall be installed to supply receptacle outlets. Important. Only the receptacles, not the lighting outlets. Only the receptacle outlets. And it says including those required by 21052G1. Okay, so why is this important? People say, well, what's the significance of saying it like that? Well, the significance is the 210.52, when it says including those, in the past, it was quite, people were like, okay, can that branch circuit only supply the receptacles that are specifically stated by 210.52G1, which is, again, talking about vehicle bays, that type of thing, and one for each vehicle bay? They're only talking about those? Or what about the other receptacles that are in there? Could I pick up other receptacles in that garage? Answer is yes, because of how the language is written. Okay, so let's go back to that. So here's what it says. At least one 120 volt, 20 amp branch circuit shall be installed to supply receptacle outlets. So what does that mean for me and you? Well, that also means that the garage door receptacle outlets can be on that 20 amp circuit. Okay. Yeah, if you want to run additional circuits, you can. This is just the at least one. That's all it's saying. So if you want to run more than one, go ahead. If you want to run separate branch circuits to the garage door opener receptacles, that's fine too if you want. Now remember, typically when you're using the garage door, you know, you have good diversity here. You've got, chances are you're not going to be using the other receptacles when you're using the garage door. So people keep saying, oh no, I don't want to put garage door in it. It'll cause it to trip. Yeah, I have done it for years, and it went back and forth in different code cycles on what to do with this. But at the end of the day, there's absolutely no problem with doing it. But if you want to run separate ones, you know, that's up to you. Okay. Now, let's read on, continue on with some of the language here. So now, what it also says, including those in 210.52G1, which if I zoom in on it again, here is in each attached garage and in each detached garage with electric power, it says at least one receptacle outlet shall be installed in each vehicle bay. So if 3-car garage, you have one in each vehicle bay footprint, right? And again, they're not to be more than 5.5 feet. So those are the ones that are required by 210.52G1, okay? But don't let it think that you can't also put the other receptacle outlets in there on that circuit as well if you choose to, okay? Now, when it says right here that the circuit shall have no other outlets, it's specifically excluding things like lighting outlets, for example, or other outlets that are not germane to the 20 amp branch circuit. But that doesn't mean, again, I can't have other convenience receptacles in there on this, because this rule says that I can, right here. That's why in the 2023 code, it's important to see where this grayed out language right here, it says including those required by 210.52G1. Makes sense? Okay, so I can do the receptacles in the ceiling. I can do the receptacles that are not to be higher than 5.5 feet for each vehicle bay. All of that could be on that at least one. But the importance, can you put additional ones in there? Absolutely. Now, if you see this gray area, again, we're in the 2023 edition of the NEC. Okay? And it says additional branch circuits rated 15 amperes or greater shall be permitted to serve receptacle outlets other than those required by 210.52G1. So what does this rule mean? So this rule means that it seemed to imply to people that the only thing that you could put in the garage was 20 amp circuits. And that was never the intent, or at least it wasn't supposed to be that way. So here it's making it clear that I can have a 15 amp circuit to some receptacles in the garage. I can go to a specific piece of equipment in the garage if I want, which we've done forever, right? So again, this is just reaffirming that I can have other circuits in there, and they don't all have to be 20 amp, right? So that gets rid of that question. in it. Now, we do have some exceptions that we'll look at. So the exceptions are, number one, this circuit shall be permitted to supply outdoor receptacle outlets. Now, we're going to go look at our graphic again and show you kind of example of what we mean, because you may have a air conditioning unit that's over there, and you need to have that receptacle by 210.63. You need to have that receptacle within 25 feet. So that receptacle can be on that circuit. Okay, so because it specifically allows me to supply outdoor receptacle outlets. Okay, you'll see that, and it makes sense to be able to just pop out and do that. And then exception number 2 says where the 20 amp circuit supplies a single. So now this one's just like the old bathroom rule. If you have a single vehicle bay a garage, then this one is saying, you know what? I will let you put the lighting and the receptacles on the same circuit, as long as it's a single vehicle bay. That's it. So here's what it says. It says, where the 20 amp circuit supplies a single vehicle bay garage, outlets for other equipment within the same garage shall be permitted to be supplied in accordance with 210.23b1 and b2. And of course, keep in mind that b1 and b2 are the limitations when it comes to cord and plug connected equipment that are not fastened in place, and of course, those that are fastened in place. That's what b1 and b2 are all about. Okay, so keeping that in mind. Now, as always, you have the link. If you're using link, we'll have some commentary or enhanced information. Basically, it's like the commentary. And it kind of gives you some additional information. So here's that one car garage, right? And it allows the receptacles, right, to be on with the lighting outlets if it's a one car or one vehicle bay. Well, this looks like it's a 2 vehicle bay for me, right? So if it's a 2 vehicle bay, that's not going to work, right? Makes sense? Hope so. So let's go back to our graphic. So here's our garage, and I have some questions on here. Let's see. Anthony says, I'm going to see if my building official will sponsor me for the program. That's an awesome thing, folks. Sometimes you ask your companies if they will sponsor you in a CMECP program so that you can enhance your knowledge. And it really builds leaders, because we set time restraints. You got to manage your time. And so sometimes your boss or your municipality may even pay for it. So that's a great thought. I never really thought of that, Anthony. That's awesome. Anthony also says, Paul, do you really think you can stay out of the code? No, I can't. Never going to happen. Not for me. I could probably retire at some point, and I'm still going to be involved in the code. Also, I should say this is coffee hour, but you see me drinking a Diet Pepsi. And I'm a Diet Pepsi guy. I cannot stand Diet Coke. That's not germane to the topic, is it? Anyway. Okay. Let's see here. Anthony, I'm going to try to stick with the 2023. I don't want to go back to the 2020 and 2017. I'm going to try to do my lesson today on the 2023. And I understand that there are people out there working on earlier editions, but this is kind of focused on the 2023 edition of the NEC. So I don't want to distract and go off to another edition. So, all right. So here is our 210.11 let's see, what is it? 210.11 C4 allowance here. That's the B23 right here. So you see that it comes in and it's picking up here. So this is looks like a 2-car garage. So it's here, it's picking up this one. And then we got this one over here that's serving this vehicle bay. And we got this one over here serving this vehicle bay. Both of these are not higher than 5.5 feet. These, right? Okay. And let's see here. Now you also notice that it loops up here and hits this garage door opener right here. Okay. And you could have one receptacle for a single garage, but these had 2 bays. Okay. So it's hitting it right here. And then it continues over to here into here. Okay. You also notice right here that allowance where it's also coming out here and picking up this outdoor receptacle right here. Okay. Now, a couple things I'll point out about the GFCI rules here. So you couldn't put the GFCI in the ceiling because it would not be considered readily accessible. If you go look at the definition of readily accessible in Article 100, then having to use a ladder to get to it doesn't make it readily accessible. However, putting the GFCI right here, and it protects everything downstream, is perfectly fine. Or you could put a GFCI in the panel and protects everything, and you're fine. That type of thing. Okay. Now, talking a little bit about EV in this garage. So here is an EV. Okay, and it looks like that's a symbol for a receptacle. Okay, if for an EV receptacle. Now, I'm just using that for examples of discussion. If that is a receptacle for an EV, then it's required to be protected by GFCI, regardless of whether the EV is plugged in, regardless of whether the equipment is installed. And if it's a receptacle, it doesn't matter that the EV may have some type of GFCI or GFI built in. It doesn't matter. If it's a receptacle, it's required to have GFCI protection. And that's either going to be at the receptacle, being the amps this is, probably not going to happen. So this would be back in the panel, okay, if it's a receptacle. Now, where do we see that in the code? Well, we're going to, first of all, we're going to look at 210.8. And 210.8, hey, Richard, good morning from Anaheim. You're up early out in California. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate it. All right, so, and Anthony, I might jump back to your topic if I've got time. So hang with me. Don't leave me hanging. Don't run off on me. All right, so 210.8, GFCIs, dwelling units, garages, okay, is what we're dealing with. So let's go to the NEC really quick. Here's where we're at, 210.8. So dwelling unit, okay, we're talking about receptacles, 125 through 250 in garages, period. So if you do a receptacle for an EV charger, cord and plug, which is very common to do, you won't get as much output on the EV in the circuit with the cord and plug than you will hardwire. But either way, if that's your choice, when you do that, if you use a receptacle, there is no way around it. Okay, you have to have GFCI in the circuit, and you can protect it by either a receptacle or a circuit breaker. Since the chances of you getting a receptacle that'll do this for an EV, right? Because they're typically, 50 amps and things like that, for the most part, is slim and none. So you're going to do it at the breaker. But this is going to cover the receptacle there. Now, what about in 625? Well, 625 is also going to make sure you are very clear when it comes to that. So let's talk about that requirement, and I'll get you here. So it's 625.54. Right here, also says all receptacles installed for connection to EV charging shall have ground fault circuit interprotection for personnel. Now, as people say, but my EV has a charger built into it. It doesn't matter. If it is a receptacle, then it's going to have GFCI. Now, if you're hardwiring an EV in that garage, then it does not require GFCI protection unless the manufacturer of the EV charger or the EVSE actually dictates it and says it in their instructions, okay? That type of thing, right? So we're talking about in a garage. That's what we're dealing with today. That's what today's topic is about the garage and in the garage and circuits that are associated with the garage. Okay, does that make sense? All right, let's see here. Other questions? What does Anthony says? I would like to know for everyone, those built-in GFCI protections that some specified sheets come with a trip of 20 milliamps. They are not GFCI. Yeah, and actually, sometimes they can be even higher than that. And so those aren't even considered GFCI for the level that they trip at, okay? So again, most of the time, they're not going to qualify anyway. But remember, if it's receptacle, it's irrelevant, okay? It's irrelevant to that. But good to point that out. All right, So let's kind of go back to the image real quick. All right, so there's our circuit. If we're putting it in, that type of thing. All right. And of course, down here, here's the lighting circuit that's coming in. There's a three-way here, and there's a three-way out by the front door so that you, at your front door, you can turn your garage lights on and off, that type of thing. All right. Here's an interesting point to point out. This lighting right here at the garage is not required. This lighting here at the entrance to the garage from the outside is required to illuminate this area. This right here is not considered an entrance, and it is not required to have illumination at it. But most people do, right? So either way, but again, not required to do so. Now, talking a little bit about this figure, as you can see this figure, we'll kind of get into the notes. And again, this is from our residential program, so people wonder about how detailed our residential program gets. For those that are trying to migrate from commercial work, or maybe if you're in a company and you want to get everybody that is in your company on the same page so you all understand the code a little bit better, then this residential program is really great. There's a lot of features built into it, bookmark features, and things like that you can utilize. So anyway, so let's kind of go on to some little extra information here. So in this figure 16-1, which is this layout we've been looking at, shows the cable layout for branch circuit B14. That was our lighting. And then the B23 was the circuit that was required by what? That was by 210.11C4, because we do have a garage, okay? Interesting question that people always ask, is AFCI required? And the answer is it is not, because garages are not in the list of rooms or spaces that require AFCI protection. And also, a garage is not considered a habitable space, okay? So not required there. So where you see something that says similar areas, that's not really, the garage is not similar to a living room. It's not similar to a basement. It's not similar to other areas. So again, not going to require AFCI protection yet. Okay? I say yet because, you never know where things are going to be going. Okay. I do believe it has not been added to the 2026. So, we're not expanding to that part of it yet. But I'd have to go look. Anybody I can go look in the 2026, but really it's kind of pointless because we're not there yet. So no sense in looking at it. Let's see here. Okay, as you saw, the two luminaires on the right and left side outside of the overhead door, they're controlled by three-way. One just inside the overhead door area, which is right here. And this other one goes to the front door. That's all about convenience, okay? All right, and let's see here. What else do we got here? Oh, we're just looking at the branch circuit loading. Okay, now, interesting in our layout. Might as well look at this. So 404.2C, that's the rule. It requires grounded conductors to be at switch locations, right? So it's as interesting. So generally requires that the grounded conductor, neutral, be brought to all switch locations. However, non-habitable rooms are exempted. By definition, a garage is not considered a habitable room. Therefore, the neutral conductor is not run to the four-way switch and the second three-way switch that control the garage lighting, okay? So, there you go. The door is, as I think I said that earlier, Anthony, this one is required. This is not, okay? Now, as far as the loading that we have in that garage, for example, we have 100-watt lamp holders in the ceiling. There's three of them. There's 300 watts. The outside garage light, that was 100, right? total for 400. These lights here in this layout, you see this is bold. I don't know if you can tell it. This is bold and this one's not. So they're not putting these lights on with B23. They're actually on with a circuit at the front door. Okay. So that's why you see this here this way. They're going to the front door. It's not fed by this one. The reason for that, as we said, this is just a dead end, right? Comes right here and stops when that three-way circuit, okay? So they're probably carrying it all the way over and then bringing the travelers back and then doing the lighting, that type of thing, okay? All right. So talking about that B23, the branch circuit for that garage, okay? Just in looking in loading, just for loading to see what we're talking about here. Because people do question the loading, let's say, for the garage door opener and what kind of loading is on it. All right, well, let's look at it. So remember what we said? The code allows me to put that garage door receptacle on with that at least 120 amp circuit for the receptacles in that garage. So let's look at the loading for a second because people freak out about loading. It says, and also remember the reason it gives you reference to 210.21b1 and 2 also is important because, and I will show you, if it lets me show you, I'm going to see if it's going to go there. Probably doesn't go there. But the reason I bring that up is because typically those garage door openers are cord and plug. So that's what's going to force you to have to bring in down here. It's going to force you to have to bring in those other rules. Okay? So keep that in mind. Let's see here. Let me go back here. Okay, so let's look at our loading really quickly. So the cable layout, we saw that in figure 16-1. We saw how it was looping around and picking up all those receptacles. What is the loading, actually? So let's see if we can pull this out here. All right, so let's see here. Receptacles. We've got receptacle loading. Again, it is residential, so we be honest with you, we don't have to use the 180. But if we had to come up with numbers, just to come up with numbers and do some math, let's just use the 180 to come up with numbers. So that would be 5 of them. That'd be 900 watts. And then this garage door, there were 4.8 amps for that motor. And so that's looking that would be times 120 and a 0.9 or 90% power factor. We're given these numbers. Okay, so that'd be 518 watts. And we got two 60-watt lamps, the total of 1,538. And so it looks like we have all these values that we're using. So the total is 6, right? And the other reason we're not doing these here is because remember we said those were on a different circuit. So that's why it's not in the quantity count. All right. So it looks like overall 1,596. Let me get rid of this. So let's see what we're talking about here. What are the rules in that garage? So that's just loading. Between me and you, I really don't have to concern myself with that because when it comes to residential in the real world, I got the 20 amp circuit. I can put those receptacles in. They don't. They basically in the 2023 edition of the NEC, and let me show you that. Let me share that with you. In the 2023 edition of the NEC, let's go to 220 real quick, and let's do our calculation. Let me get here real quick. And hold on here. Sorry. Okay. All right. So what you'll notice here is in a one-family dwelling, right? It says the lighting and receptacle loads. No additional load calculation shall be required. So what's included in that 3 VA per square foot? Hopefully, as an electrician, you did this math. All general use receptacles of 20 amperes or less, okay? Including those receptacles connected to the circuit specified in 210.11c3 and C4. So the bathroom don't have to take any additional VA value in it. It's covered in the 3 VA, so you ain't got to do nothing extra. Remember, when it's two small appliances, you got to have at least 1,500 VA each, right? In the laundry, at least 1,500 VA each, but you don't do anything for the bathroom, and you obviously don't do anything for the garage. So while we showed you how the loading works for the branch circuit, it's really moot because, again, the receptacles in the garage are going to be very sparingly used, obviously. But that doesn't mean if you have a man cave or a she cave in your garage and you want to put additional circuits in there, go for it. Do whatever you want. It's your garage. But I just wanted to show you that you really don't need to do anything because it's encompassing in that 3 VA per square foot. Now, that's not to take away if you run some kind of dedicated circuit to some specific load. That's totally different than what's covered in this 3 VA per square foot. That's kind of the key point that I wanted to make with that. Okay. All right. Let's see here. So let's talk about some of those rules again. So I think Anthony posted this earlier in the lesson, and that was NEC 210.52G1. Now, in our Fast Tracks program, when you see the code reference, you're supposed to stop and go to it. In the residential program, I recommend you do the same thing. We didn't put these in chevrons because we're going to regurgitate the code on here for you. So this is what you see, this little icon right here. So that's the reference to that. So 210.52G1. Let's see here. Anthony wants to know the reference for, the lighting for the entry, that type of thing. Okay, yeah, we can give you that for those that want it. So let's go to 210.70 right here. Okay. And let's see here. So right here, so 210.70. Oh, let me share it. I'm not sharing that tab. Here we go. So we're at 210.70. What Anthony's saying, he wants to know where's the reference that says the garage door entry doesn't require those luminaires, but the entry and egress and entry to the garage does, like a regular door. All right, so that's where you would go, 210.70. And we'd scroll down to the additional locations. And in here, for dwelling units, attached garages and detached garages with electric power, it says at least one exterior lighting outlet, that's that luminaire, controlled by a listed wall-mounted control device, shall be installed to provide illumination on the exterior side of the outdoor entrance or exit with grade level access. Okay? Now, this is what I'm talking about. Right here it says a vehicle door in a garage shall not be considered as an outdoor entrance or exit, and thus does not require the illumination. Your choice to do it is just really a good choice for your customer, okay? But it's not required. Now, what's interesting is if I were to go back to my diagram and I looked back at this layout right here, because this is the light that is required. These are the lights that aren't required. If my entry door happened to be over here, and let's say this was a garage, it had a wall, was a little bigger, and the door was right here, could these lights meet that requirement for the illumination? Absolutely, they could. So at that point, yes, they may illuminate the garage door, but if it also illuminates the entrance and egress, then that also is acceptable. Okay. So anyway, wanted to make that point. So there you go. The vehicle door in the garage shall not be considered as an outdoor entrance or exit if it's designed for the vehicle, driving in and out, that type of thing. Does that answer your question, Anthony? Okay. All right, let's go back here. But thanks for calling. Anytime, guys, you have something like that, like Anthony's doing great. If there's something you want me to go look at, let me know. We'll go look at it and break it down. That's what these lives are about. And this is what I want to be doing more of in the next year, is more of these lives where you interact and you can ask me questions and I go and show it in the code so that we all learn code together. That's what we're here for. All right. All right, so let's see, where are we at here? Let's go a little bit more. Again, this is very detailed reading in your program. And this is, by the way, for those that are asking, this is our residential program, by the way. Okay. All right, so let's see here. So here we are. We're talking about the code rules, garages. And this is what it states. And those receptacles are required to have at least one receptacle per vehicle bay. Now, a couple cycles ago, it said cars. And so that eliminated things like trucks and SUVs and whatever. So a couple cycles ago, we kind of cleaned that up. So they're all basically vehicles of some sort. So this makes more sense. If it's a 2-car garage, two receptacles at least. If it is a 3-car garage, 3 receptacles at least. Now those receptacles, again, can't be higher than 5.5 feet. So typically, I don't know why you'd put them higher than 5.5 feet anyway, because they're basically for servicing at each vehicle bay, right? So they have to be what? No more than 5.5 feet to serve this rule. But again, people ask, does that mean I can't use that same circuit to put receptacles in the ceiling? Absolutely you can. Just to meet this rule, those receptacles can't be higher than 5.5 feet. But can you have receptacles on that circuit that are higher than 5.5 feet? Absolutely you can. Absolutely. Now it says, in addition to the number of branch circuits required by other parts of this section, you have to have at least one 20-amp branch circuit installed to supply receptacle outlets. Okay, so that is important. Okay, so if it's easier for you to understand, if I want to put receptacles in a garage and I want to run at least the 120-amp branch circuit, can I put all of my 20-amp receptacles in there? Absolutely, I can. All right, on there. I have to make sure my locations for the ones that serve the garage are not higher than 5.5 feet, but then my other ones can be. Now, also you saw earlier, the question is, can I have more than one circuit in the garage? And you've been doing this for decades, right? Without the code. You've been putting additional circuits in there. And all the code did was say, you know what? That's fine. We'll let you put additional ones in there. And that's the importance of this language right here. Just kind of clarifying that what we all thought you could do. Now, remember, for a couple cycles there, it wasn't this easy, right? 2017, it was different than the 2020. And then, of course, 2023 clarified and brought us back to the way it was previously. So the language kind of gets better, all right? And, of course, you did see where we can supply outdoor receptacles. We saw that already, all right? Now, obviously, GFCI protection we talked about, and that's going to be down where you can readily accessible, and that's 210.8 tells you it has to be readily accessible. So again, I get this question from time to time. Can I put the GFCI up in the ceiling? I have seen that. No, you cannot. And there's also other folks out there who don't like GFCIs in the garage, period. For example, if you're plugging in a freezer or something like that, and they say, well, is there a rule that says I can run a dedicated circuit or an individual branch circuit to the freezer? Well, obviously you can, because it can be 15 amps or greater. You can do that if you want. The question is, does the receptacle still have to be GFCI protected? Absolutely it does, because 210.8a says that if it's in the garage, then it's got to be GFCI protected, so you can't get around that. So then people say, well, I'm worried about it spoiling the meat that's in my freezer, or it could go off while I'm on vacation. Well, it is what it is. There's no way around that. If you have a whole house generator, then maybe that'll help you. If you lose power, you'd still lose your meat. You still lose all your things in your freezer. So that's, if you don't have a generator, then you still could lose power for that. So you still could have an issue. If the GFCI trips, yeah, it could trip. And yes, it could spoil things in your freezer. That's all a possibility, but this is a safety rule. And so we really don't concern ourselves with the inconveniences of stuff like that. All right, we really don't. All right. Safety alert, 210.8A2, again, whether it's 120 volts through 250 volt receptacles, single phase, 150 volts to ground or less in a garage is going to have GFCI protection. Just is what it is. Now, here's interesting. If a detached garage has no electricity provided, so you have a garage, it's detached from the building, no power is being run to that building, okay? Well, then obviously no rules are applicable. But just as soon as a detached garage is wired, then the pertinent code rules become effective and must be followed. So you get a house built, you build a detached garage, you don't bring power to it, you get your final, your CO, you moved in, and then a year later you decide you want to bring power to the garage. Of course, you're going to pull a new permit to wire that garage. It's detached, okay? And in that point, then it's going to be inspected under whatever code it is under at that time that you're doing the inspection, okay? And that means these rules would be required, okay? And you would have to have your GFCI protection, right? And you have to follow all the other rules as well if it's a garage, okay? Now, we've talked about that EV charger, and I've kind of told you a few things about the EV charging. Something that is new for the 2023 edition of the NEC is that when you're doing a load calculation for an EV, if you know you're going to have an EV in there, then you have to take a certain amount of VA into consideration when you're doing the calculation. Now, prior to 2023, it is a load, and you knew you're going to have the load, then you still had to take it into consideration, but you would take whatever the nameplate was. So now, in the 2023 edition of the NEC, we do have a reference that's going to give us some guidance when it comes to EVs and the expected load or what we're going to have for that. Okay, so that is something that is new for the 2023 edition of the NEC. So we might as well show you that. Okay, so let me go on and show that, and let's go on and go over to it. So here we have 22057. So electric vehicle supply equipment, EVSE. It says the EVSE load shall be calculated at either 7,200 watts, which is synonymous with VA if you're doing your load calc, or the nameplate rating of the equipment, whichever is larger. This is only applicable if you're going to be putting the EV in your design. So as you saw with our drawing, it showed that an EV was being run, a circuit was being run. So in that case, and if I'm doing a load calculation, I most certainly have to take that EV into consideration and add it as the load. Now, the next question that people ask under the 2023 edition of the NEC, they go, well, since an EV is an appliance, and I do have people out there that say, where does it say it's an appliance? Look at the definition of appliance. An EV, all manufacturers, they're made to do the same type of function. Okay, the uniformity, just like a washer machine, just like a dryer, it's an appliance, whether you like it or not. And so we know this. And so when it comes to appliances, y'all know that when you're doing a standard calculation, and nobody uses a standard calculation anymore, everybody uses the optional, but in a standard calculation, if you have 4 or more appliances, you get to take a demand factor of 75%. So the question that people have asked in the past, since it is an appliance, people have said, well, can I apply that to my list of appliances in order to take a demand if I'm using the standard method? And the answer to that in the 2023 edition of the NEC is an unequivocal no. So here you've got the 2023 edition right here. We're in 220.53. This is the 75% when you have 4 or more demand, okay? And you see right here, grayed out, or I guess it's kind of tanned out, I guess. You'll notice that it excludes. So again, this rule shall not apply to the following. Does not apply to EVSE. So that settles the question that somebody might have, or at least the intent when it comes to the 2023. that the EVSE is not part of those appliances that you're able to count in order to get an addition to 75% demand factor. Okay. Now, as you and I both know, the probability of anybody using the standard method on an exam, yes. In the real world, no. But if you're calculating the neutral, you still have to know how to do the standard method. Why? Because the rules for sizing the neutral are found in part 3. They're not found in part 4. Part 4 is the optional method, which you're probably going to use 100% of the time in the real world. It's not found in there. So because it's in part 3, well, you're going to be forced to be in part 3. Okay? So that's just kind of one of those things to be aware of. All right? Now, prior to 2023, where did we get the information about including an EVSE in our load calculation? Well, that was in 220.14. It was a specific load. It's a branch circuit. You had to account for the load. So that's always been there. Okay? So that type of thing. All right. Now, the next question that people have, and again, this is not an EVSE episode, but the question from folks is, how is that load treated? And how do I treat it? Well, important to go look at 625 again so that you can see what the rating is. So I'll go on there real quickly so we can knock this out. Okay. And let's go on and go there. So here is your branch circuit. Okay. For your EV, it says each outlet installed for the purpose of supplying EVSE greater than 16 amperes or 120 volts shall be supplied by an individual branch circuit. So that is the only thing on it going to that EV. Okay. Next, the overcurrent protection says the overcurrent protection for feeders and branch circuits applying EVSE or the WPTE. That's more of the wireless type of charging. Haven't seen much of that or any of that, to be honest with you, in a residential application where you just drive right over it and it charges it just like you would if you set your phone on one of those little pads. I haven't seen that yet, okay? But it's telling you that these circuits shall be sized for continuous duty and shall have a current rating of not less than 125% of the maximum load of the equipment, okay? Whatever the EV's output is, that's what you're doing, all right? It says where non-continuous loads are supplied with the same feeder, so this is a feeder where it may be a feeder, might be supplying not only the EVSE, but something else, and those loads may be considered non-continuous loads. It says the overcurrent device shall have a current rating of not less than the sum means summation, adding up, of the non-continuous loads, whatever those loads are that are non-continuous, okay, plus the 125% of the continuous load. And we already know that the EVSE is what? To be considered a continuous load. So if you have a feeder, it's doing not just the EVSE, but supplying other loads, then you're going to take the summation of the two. You take the EVSE at 125%. You take the summation of the non-continuous loads at 100%, add them together, and that's what your protection and sizing has to be, okay? Makes sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Let's see here. Then there's other allowances, which we won't get into today's episode about EMS, and also if you have an EVSE that allows you to go into it and adjust the ampacity values on it. And basically you meet other rules like in 750, which means that it's limited access to it or some kind of password or some kind of protection so that the consumer can't change the output of this EVSE. And this is important because it may be a situation where an EVSE gets added to an existing service and maybe there's not enough headroom on it. And so you still get your EVSE, but they can adjust it back through the equipment and it allows it to be on that service. That's an important thing, but again, you have to have some ability to keep the consumer from effing it up. That's my politically correct way of saying that. Keep them from effing it up. Okay? Don't want to get banned anywhere. What is it? What is this? A few companies that do it around here who use it to sell people new services. Oh, you talking about the EVSE? Tell them, oh, they got to have a whole new service because they don't have the capacity. Is that what you mean, Anthony? Yeah, unfortunately, the sad part about it is people don't know how to determine whether or not their service is adequate. And I don't know if some of you remember, I was supposed to schedule to do a webinar on how to calculate the headroom on a service. That seminar is going to take place. And this is a great segue to let you know about that seminar. That seminar is going to take place the first of the year. It's going to be exclusive for those that are members of Fast Track's Tube. Okay, Fast Track's Tube. And so it's part of that inclusion into that program. So if you're a Fast Track's Enhanced student, or you're a member of Fast Track's Tube, which again, you can use a coupon code 50OFF and get 50% off. You'll get access to that webinar next year. And it is a headroom webinar to show you how you can determine whether the existing service, there's enough room to add something like an EVSE or some other circuits. That is a webinar that I think most of you have been asking for. And because of my move to the offices here from Texas to Virginia, we delayed it. So it will be the first of the year. Anthony says, no, he was actually talking about the standard method. Yeah. So a lot of times they'll redo something and recalculate it over again and use the standard method because they know it'll be higher than the optional method. And by doing it that way, they end up pushing them to get a service change. That is kind of unscrupulous, if you ask me, but does it happen? Yes. And will if you use a standard method, will it result in a larger service? Absolutely it will. No doubt it will. So again, Anthony, you would never do that, I know. But, some people would. Okay. Let's see. So that's all I really will talk about for the SSE. Okay. Well, let's go back to look at our lesson again. All right. Let's see here. Okay. So let's talk about lighting in a typical garage. The common approach to providing adequate lighting in a residential garage is to install a lamp holder with a 100-watt equivalent compact fluorescent or LED on the ceiling above each side of the automobile. Okay, so each side, 2 cars right on top, one on each bay. I typically liked the last one that I installed. People ask, Paul, do you get your hands dirty? I did. Oh, hold on for a second, folks. I think I screwed my thing up here. Hold on. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry. I did a garage or a remodel in an attic space not too long ago before I left Texas for a guy, before I gave up our contracting license for sure. But I like, they have these new LED 4-foot strips and it's made up of LEDs. And I use those and I'm going to tell you what, talk about really lighting up the area. I'm a big fan of those. So 4-foot LED strips in these garages. And again, it wasn't 100-watt. It was equivalent to 100-watt, but I think the actual wattage was god-awful so much less, okay? Oh, Anthony, you're at AHJ now? You work for a municipality? Cool. You might have told me that. I don't remember. So you don't have a company anymore? All right, cool. You got out of the rat race. I saw that. You got out of that rat race. No, yep, that's kind of why I got out of it years ago. Then I moved to Texas and got right back in it and quickly got out of it again. I realized early on that I was a far better instructor than I was trying to compete with everybody, nickel and dime stuff, okay? So anyway, all right. So for a 1-car garage, okay, for a 1-car garage, typically you're going to put in 2 lamp holders as recommended, or 2 4-foot strips LED, is what I recommend. 2-car garage, 3 lamp holders, or I still think you can get away with 2 nice 4-foot strip LEDs. They put out a lot of light. And obviously a 3-car garage, 4 lamp holders. I don't know that anybody puts the lamp holders in anymore. They put, like CFLs, or they'll put in the fluorescent strips. I don't even know if people are putting in fluorescent strips anymore. But again, I like the LED strips. So again, just kind of positioning. There you go. There you go. There you go. These are common sense type of things. For those that say, what is a lamp holder versus what is a keyless, right? So typically this is a lamp holder. This will be controlled by the switch somewhere. And this is a keyless, has the pull chain on it, qualifies as a switch, okay? All right, so anyway, that's just some different things to worry about. Also, I will tell you why I like to put the LED 4-foot strips and things like that, because they don't put off a lot of heat, okay? So, and they just put in a lot of light, okay? Landscape lighting. I'm not going to get into landscape lighting. Lighting. The hell? Hold on. I got. But again, I always tell contractors, be aware of this. Run a circuit. Put a junction box out. You never know outside when your customer is going to want landscape lighting. And as a contractor, I tell a lot of electrical contractors to add the landscape lighting into their package, whether they install it or not. Put the receptacle outside or put it in a box outside in order to give them the capability to do that after, and then charge for that separate circuit. Makes sense, right? And of course, you have all different types of landscape lighting. Low voltage lighting, again, is covered in Article 411. Not really germane to my topic today, but if you're interested in the landscape lighting, basically to operate it not greater than 30 volts AC or 60 volts DC. And if it's, in a location where wet contact is likely, then the limit is 15 volts AC or 30 volt DC, that type of thing. So not really going to get into those. And outdoor wiring, I'm not going to get into the boxes today because we're over the hour, but I wanted you to see how detailed that the residential program gets into. Talks about the in-use covers, whether something is considered a wet or damp location, what type of covers you need, how you would support the box. Okay, notice this is supported with one raceway. Code requires 2, where you're going to have a device in the box. And we get into these details with each one, covering 314.23 E and F. So I am going to start opening it up to anybody who has any questions. But I just wanted you to see this is how detailed, okay, it gets in our residential program. Okay, the underground wiring talks about the use of UF cable, different application, talks about it, talks about how to install it, okay, talks about how to supply it to the poles, all these stuff. So we get very deep. How deep should the wiring be? All that type of stuff. So those that are interested in our residential program, it's a great add-on. If you're already licensed, it's great add-on for that type of thing. So I went over my hour. I want to thank you all for joining me. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I'm going to try to be doing these coffee hours weekly. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and share them with other people. We're going to be covering all types of different topics. Today, we're just talking about garages and the lighting and the receptacles within the garage. And we'll be using various courses of ours, whether it's the commercial wiring, whether it's the residential, the exam prep, electrical theory, all those type of things. We're going to be covering all these topics in coffee hour with me coming up all over the next year. And hopefully we're going to do one of these weekly. So let people know. I appreciate you coming. If anybody's got any questions, I'll entertain the questions now. And I'm more than happy. I'll share them on the screen and answer the questions for you. And we'll even go to the NEC if necessary. But I am over the hour. So again, I want to be respectful of your time. It's coffee hour for a reason, not coffee half a day. Okay. That type of thing. So doesn't look like I got any questions coming. So with that said, I'll turn you loose. I appreciate everybody for joining me for this episode of Coffee Hour. And we'll catch you on another episode. Till next time, stay safe. God bless.